How do you clean up your yard in the spring if it looks gross from the winter? Hey homeowners, DIY and professional landscapers, my name is Hudson here with HeyOCreative.com, and today we're going to be talking about how to do spring cleanups, specifically with perennials, whether that be rose bushes, ground covers, grasses, hydrangeas, or the like. But before we get started, if you have a landscape project that you are working on right now, then I've got a gift for you. In the link below this video or by hitting the QR code in the corner with your phone, you can get my step-by-step guide for how to do landscaping from start to finish, which includes design, installation, maintenance, yes, even spring cleanups, and even motivation if you're having trouble getting out in the yard and getting enthused about doing your landscape. So go ahead and download that if you want to save time, money, and stress on your yard. It's the same system that I use as a professional, and believe you me, the less time I can spend at work, the better. So this is going to be the fastest and easiest way to take care of your lawn and your landscape. All right, let's talk about seasonal cleanups. What I've got here are some roses and then some just low-lying perennials that have dead stalks that need to be cleaned up before the spring season begins. The reason that we do this is twofold. One, it makes it look really nice, which is the purpose of your landscape, but secondly, it helps those plants grow back in throughout the season and experience better growth. So we're gonna start with our roses here, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go through, and any of these rose heads, I'm just gonna cut those off. Right at this joint, if I can. Be careful not to get pickered by these guys because they are sharp. I'm gonna throw those into my catch-all basin. Then I'm also gonna go through and look for any dead in the plant, and I'm gonna get rid of that. I'm not seeing a lot in this one. Even though it all looks like sticks, the way that you can tell dead roses versus live roses, that live roses generally have a little green or brown or purple in them, and dead ones are more white. You can see here an example of a dead rose. It's got cracks along the stem. It kind of looks dilapidated and falling apart, and it's more white and brittle than the rest of the rose. And if I snap it like that, there's no green. So go through your roses, find dead. Oh, there's a lot of dead in this one. Cut that out, and then just deadhead the entire plant. All right, that's it for roses today. Now we're gonna look at these perennials. Most low-lying perennials like this, if they have dead in them, that will just come straight out. But you wanna make sure that you're not pulling any roots, because that's kind of the entire plant. All of its energy is in its roots right now, and it's gonna come bursting back up through the soil, but you wanna make sure not to, rip that out. So what I'm doing here is I'm just gently moving this around, convincing it that it can let go and it can come out. Another way that I can do this is to use a hand pruner and just snip this off, but this is working pretty good for these guys. Just using my hands and moving along through the entire thing. And when I'm done with that, I'm gonna pick it up and put it into my wheelbarrow with all my trash and take it to my burn pit or take it to an organic disposal place. To make sure you got all the good stuff, go back over it with a spring rake and just rake out any of the leaves or debris or things that just build up in plants over the season. We're gonna throw that away as well. Any of the leftover stalks that are here are gonna get covered over with mulch later on in the spring cleanup process, so I wouldn't worry too much about those. But if there are any long ones that are sticking out, the spring rake is going to reveal those and you can just pull them up. You can use this same principle with hostas and many other low-lying perennials. And I'm just gonna go through the rest of the bed and rake up any long sticks or fronds or anything that have blown in here, and then this bed's done, ready to go. Some plants might have dead stalks from the previous year that you can't just gently pull out of the ground. What you do with those is you get a hand pruners like this, and you just come along and snip them off at ground level, and then throw those away. Make sure you reach all the way around and under to make sure that in areas like this, there's nothing that's clinging on underneath or around the plant or buried in leaves and foliage. So again, we're just gonna trim this plant back to here. Stack those there, go around it. And that's how you do plants with little stalks like this. When you're all done, you can take your trash, clippings, sticks, twigs, and leaves, and put them in your trash to be disposed of, either in a campfire where you invite your friends over to have a party and celebrate that you're done with your yard work, or by taking it to the dump and just getting rid of it entirely. Hydrangeas very much depend on the style that you are cleaning up. Most often people will plant Annabelles, and with Annabelles you can just take a hedge trimmers or one of these guys and you can just cut them off right at ground level, and they will come back the next year. With these guys, what you got to do is go along and just trim off each head. You can go right at the tip. You want to be sure, you see these leaves, these green leaves coming out? This plant is already leafing out. So if I take this off at the ground, it's going to have a lot of work to come back and redo. So I'm just going to take it off right at the head. And so you're just going to go across the entire hydrangea and trim off the little puffballs. Come here, puffballs. You can also take this opportunity to take care of your plant by trimming off any dead looking or twisted stalks. If it's got a crimp in it, it's probably not going to make it that far. If you're trying to get the most growth out of your hydrangeas, then trim them as close to the ball as you can, or as close to the nearest joint as possible. However, if you are trying to get a good look out of your plant, or it's getting too big, then you can use the same principle with just clumping them together and cutting them at the nearest joint. The reason for the joint is that it's leafing out there and you don't want to cut that off where it's leafing out. Those are all different areas that you can cut to keep this from growing so much more this way. But these ones are trying to cover this wall, trying to cover this utility area, and so we're going to give them as much room as possible. Once you're done deadheading all of your hydrangeas, you can go through and pick any leaves or twigs that are nestled down in the base of the plant, get those out, just make it look nice for the next little bit, and then rake up all of the debris and throw it away. Sometimes a spring rake is really nice for getting things out of the base of the plant. Now that most of the debris is cleaned up, you can come back through with a broom or a blower and get rid of all the stuff that has leaked onto the patio space or to your hard surface space, and just kind of clean everything up a little bit more. That's it for today on hydrangeas. These things are more of those dead guys that we can just pull up using our handies. Being very gentle, just kind of coaxing it, just gently pulling up. Not even really grabbing, just using my hands to almost knead it. Push it around, okay, here. Now I'm gonna twist and grab it and just jiggle it a little bit. Yeah, there we go. It's a nice clump. Who knows, you might even find some treasures. Now this is of course not 100% cleaned up, but I'm gonna come back through with a broom or a blower to get as much of that debris out of that river rock as I possibly can. Wow, this bed needs some help. All right, you can see here there's some stalks that I'm gonna have to use the snippers for. And then over here we've got some black-eyed Susans and coneflowers that also are gonna need some snips. But what you can see here as well is just a little grass in the bed. And if you're doing spring cleanups, this is an excellent time to go through your beds and just double check them for grass in the bed. You can get rid of it by pulling it by hand, which is labor intensive, but it's a pretty effective method. But you could also use weed killer if you don't mind a little dead grass sitting in your bed for a little bit, or you can hire a professional to do it. Pre-emergent is more for weeds that haven't yet sprouted or have come up through the soil. It keeps them from doing that or poisons them while they're younger. If you've got a mature grass growing in your landscape bed, pre-emergent's not gonna help you as much. So yeah, we're gonna have to get rid of that the old-fashioned way. Because this plant is already blooming just a little bit, and by blooming I mean green, has foliage, I'm gonna do my best not to trim the foliage. I'm just gonna cut a dome around the edge of the foliage, trying to mitigate how much of this brown stickiness is visible. Just make it look nice, you know? But I am gonna try to avoid cutting the foliage while I do this. Hands, the spring rakes of the body. All right, time to get the grass. Now I'm gonna come along and bed edge this, but if it's too far inside the bed edge, I can't do anything about it. So I'm just gonna pull that grass and lay it on the edge where I can get to it. Same with this stuff. Just gonna try to get all the roots. Shake it off, leave as much of the soil as I can. And there you go, just 10 minutes of work and this bed is almost ready for mulching. But Hudson, what if I have an old vegetable garden and I don't know what to do with it? You're in luck. The same principles apply. Just cut off all the dead. Vegetables are almost easier. You can just take them straight back to the ground because most of them will sprout anew every year. And if it's a reoccurring plant like a grapevine or a fruit tree, just a little renewal pruning will do the trick, but that's probably for another video. For these guys, we're just gonna take them off at the ground. Same as we would any other perennial. They've got a little frosty pile of leaves here, so we're just gonna pick that up. And you can see there's already some nice lettuce coming up through the ground here, even though it's so early in spring. What if you have boxwoods and they're little gangly like these guys and you need them trimmed up? Well, I'm not scheduled to do that to these today, so I can't show you. However, if you're gonna go the fast route, take a hedge trimmers and go over it, shaping it just in a nice dome. Don't get too carried away, as it's like a haircut where the shorter you go and the shorter you go and the shorter you go, eventually there's no more to take away. So proceed with caution. And then the other way that I would do it is to use a hand trimmers, and this is the long and arduous way. Just trim off any of the longer stuff that's bigger than the main body. Honestly, I would just buy a cheap scissors and use that because that will probably work better. But if you are going to trim up your boxwoods, this would be a great time to do it. If you have a hydrangea that has stems instead of stalks, then the same principle that applies to the earlier ones applies to this. You're just gonna take off the very tips or go back to the nearest joint where there are flowering leaves. And with these, they've got joints all along the stem here. It's kind of like bamboo. And so you don't have to go very far. But I'm just gonna do my very best to take off just the tips of these ones so that we don't make the plant have to regress and build back a lot of green this coming year. Step back and double check. Just make sure you got everything. Looks good. Well, that's it for today on how to clean up your perennials for spring. As I said before, if you have a landscape project that you are working on, don't forget to pick up your free guide down below. It's all the steps and processes that I use as a professional landscaper to save myself time, money, and stress when I'm doing my work. I want you to have that just because no one should be stressed about doing their yard work. And I want you to live stress-free with more time and money to spend on the things and with the people that you love and care about. So go ahead and pick that up, download it, print it off, and use it to make your life easier. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions about your landscape. I would love to answer as many of them as I possibly can. And don't forget to like and subscribe because that really helps your plants grow greener. JK, it's actually nitrogen that makes your plants grow greener, but it is a nice thing to do and I would really appreciate it. So thanks for joining me. I hope that this helps you do your spring cleanups and get ready for the coming season. Feel free to check out any of my other videos on landscaping and head over to heocreative.com if you need any other help with your landscape project. Thanks for joining me today and I will see you in the next video.